Well, good evening, everybody. I want to welcome you again to our live online protest. Frederick Douglass said something so important. He said, "Where there is no struggle, there can be no progress." And tonight, I am just happy to report on the progress because of the struggle in the streets of America through nonviolent protesting and through our efforts here online protesting, that we are making progress towards some of our goals. Today, breaking news is that the three other officers have been charged. I'm not sure if all have been arrested. One has turned themselves in, and the others, I'm sure, will be apprehended soon. That is good news. They're charged with abetting murder, and the second thing is the charges have been elevated against the officer that actually had his knee on the neck of George Floyd. And so, again, as Frederick Douglass said, where there is no struggle, there can be no progress. We have to continue this struggle because, as my mother said, struggle is a never ending process. Freedom is never really won. You earn it and you win it in every generation. And so I welcome you from all across these United States of America. I welcome you from across the world as you join us in this online protest that has been launched in a call for swift justice and urgent change under the hashtag online protest. We organize this effort because we know that so many of you have not been able to go to the streets to protest for various reasons. And we want to ensure that everybody is participating in some form of fashion and being able to have their voices heard, their ideas shared as we move collectively together against those things that led to this kind of atrocious act that took the very breath and life out of George Floyd. It will take monumental work. It will take collective work. It will take all of us who are part of these United States of America working together in our own spaces, in our own places, in our own spheres of influence to change systemic racism and white supremacy that has held this country hostage since its inception. And it's going to be hard work. It's going to be difficult work. It's going to require persistence. It's going to require resilience. It's going to require determination. And most importantly, it's going to require courage. And I want to commend so many people who are being courageous in this hour. People who have previously not even lifted their voices, who now understand that we all have to be willing to be courageous and take risk and risk the loss of whatever we have to lose in order for America to truly be great. Not great again, but to truly be great and reflect justice and equity and true peace for all. And so we welcome you tonight. We will have different online speakers joining us, influential speakers, joining us from across the spectrum. On this second night, we are delighted to have two people with us. I'm not sure if they're here. I'm trying to find out if they're here with us, but feel free to share, your thoughts, your ideas, your your frustrations, whatever you need to share. But I want to remind you again of the three goals because we are working in tandem with so many other organizations, and our goals may grow as the days go. Because as I said, it's going to take collective energy. It's going to take collective effort. And I want to welcome Benita Hampton Smith, who is co-hosting this with me. She works with me as a producer of our beloved community talks at the King Center. Welcome, Bonita. I'm just kind of getting ready to go over with everybody, reminding them of our goals, and you can share the good news of the petition and how many people have signed so far. So these are the three goals. The first goal is we're calling for those officers to be arrested, and they have been, if not all three arrested, they've been charged, and they will soon be arrested. And all four will be in custody. The charges against Officer, what is it, Chavez, has been elevated to second-degree murder. We're hoping that it will be elevated to first-degree murder. So we're making progress again. The second goal is demanding that the FBI open a formal case to prosecute the four men for violating the civil rights of George Floyd. And then finally, we're calling for city, state, and federal legislators to resurrect and pass H.R. 4408, the Eric Garner Excessive Use of Force Prevention Act of 2019 and 2020, to ban the chokehold from being used by law enforcement. It must not be used against citizens detained for questioning and or during arrest. Guess what, folks? There is noise now about the Senate. If Benita, can you share with us about the Senate and the chokehold ban legislation, and also about the number of people who signed our petition?
Okay, so I'm looking at that number now. We're close to 30,000. First of all, good evening, everybody. Excited to have you here, Dr. King. We're close to 30,000 on the petition. So please sign the petition on change.org, because today we did hear on the news that the Senate will be introducing the Eric Garner legislation, but it's not enough to introduce it because it's been introduced before. So we need to make sure that it's not only introduced, but it's supported. So that's the reason why we need you to make sure you sign that petition. Go to our site, and if you would, guys, put that link on social media platforms so people can just click it in the thread, because we want them to easily access it. We need not only introduction, we need support. And then we need for this to be signed so that no longer will an officer be able to choke the very life out of another black man, black woman, white woman, Asian person, nobody, Hispanic. We need to make sure that no longer officers are able to use excessive force on any human being. So sign that petition, please.
Okay, so the other thing that we want to share with you is the legislation has been.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Well, that's what I was saying, that the Senate will be introducing the legislation on next week. And so we're close to, like I said, 30,000 signatures on change.org, trying to get people to sign. We want justice for everybody who's ever experienced that awful excessive force when somebody's choking the life out of you. Eric Garner, George Floyd, never again.
And names we know not of.
And names, Dr. King, in Minneapolis, they said there have been over 200 chokeholds by police officers. So, like we say, names we know not of. Wow.
So tonight, we're going to be talking about art, activism, and advocacy, and calling on artists to use their talents, their voices, and platforms for justice and change. So many of them, even before now, because we didn't get to this place just suddenly. There have been people working in the area of justice and equity work for many years, especially since this whole cycle started with Trayvon Martin, and then it was heightened under Michael Brown and Ferguson, and we're just so proud of this next generation for the work that they're doing and continuing the momentum in this freedom struggle that every generation is called to, as my mother so eloquently said, that it's never really won. You earn it and win it in every generation. And so we are looking at these artists who are being champions for justice and equity and change. And we have two with us tonight because this is an inclusive and diverse effort. For so many years, we've run away from dealing with the issue of race, especially as it pertains to the black community. We've kind of brushed it under the rug over and over and over again. And one thing's for sure is when the black community is free, all communities will be free. We cannot mistake that. My father used to say that over and over again. And so, although the focus is on the black community, we know that the efforts that we engaged in is for justice and equity for all communities. And so I want to make that clear. But we do want to keep this focus now, because if not, I shudder to think of the further frustration of so many black men and women and young men and women who feel like black lives just don't matter anymore. We want to make sure that black lives not only matter, but black lives now have equity, that they have justice, and ultimately have peace. And so I want to welcome two people tonight, Nancy Legrand and who is the other person, Bonita? Hey, Nancy.
Hi, how are you? Nice to
Who
see
is
you again.
good to
Hi,
see
Benita.
you? Who else
Nice to
is
meet you.
joining us, Bonita?
Valerie Bertinelli.
Valerie Bertinelli. Valerie, good evening.
Hi. Good
Glad to
evening.
have both of you here tonight. You know, we this is a very beyond difficult place that we find ourselves in as a nation. And
Yes.
I'm just so happy that you all have decided to join our online protest. And I want to talk about you and the work that you're doing as artists, using your platforms to be as advocates of this issue that we're dealing with around justice, and I add equity with it, and how you are being allies in this whole struggle for equity and change. So, Nancy, I'm going to start with you because I haven't seen you in a while. It's good to see you.
I've missed you so. I'm so
Yes.
happy to see you. You look beautiful. And nice
So,
to meet
so
you, Bonetta. Bonita, I'm so sorry. Nice to meet you.
That's okay.
We
That's
talked on the phone, but I haven't.
So,
Nice to
so
see you.
talk to us. Talk
that's
to us,
okay.
Nancy, and Valerie. You can jump in wherever you want to jump in, but talk to us, Nancy.
Well, uh, I mean, first of all, this is troubling times, and the first thing I'm doing, and you'll appreciate this, is trying to be quiet, because I know you know that's not easy for me sometimes. So, and I'm trying to learn and I'm trying to listen and take it in, as hard as it is to do, to see the anger and the frustration and the rage and the exhaustion. And I can't begin to understand the magnitude of how deep it goes, and I'll never understand, but I will stand. I think that's what people are saying now, so I'm one of them. And it turns out that I literally have a soapbox. So, yeah,
No pun intended.
soapbox. No pun intended. And so I have
Nancy,
been,
but Nancy, before you go on, can
tell
you
me,
just tell
yeah.
people who you are so they know? Everybody
I
doesn't know who
My
you.
name is Nancy Legrand, and I have been on daytime television for 34 years. I'm currently on General Hospital for the last 25 years, happily so. Um, so I'm a diva.
Thank you.
Um, so you were saying about, as an artist, I feel that it is my privilege to use my space and my influence to not necessarily amplify my voice, but to amplify others. And so I take sides. I think Paul Robeson said that, an artist should take sides. Not every artist believes that. I've been taking sides for 4 years, and the reason that Valerie and I know each other is because Valerie has also been taking sides and using her platform politically at a risk to both of us. Both of us have lost many, many fans because we say what we think, and we talk about things that possibly risky to talk about, and we don't care. So
Not anymore.
no. So others, and there have been very few, Bernice, very few celebrities, as it turns out, in the past 4 years that have been vocal. Alyssa Milano, Deborah Messing. There's
Pink.
some, but there haven't been that many. And Pink and Valerie has also been one of them, because the risk that some celebrities feel is that it might hurt your brand, or maybe your employers are telling you to remain neutral. And my feeling is that things are so dangerous and right now, and so important right now, that if you're worried about losing your brand, that's going to be the least of the things that you need to worry about.
And
But
I
everybody
want to
needs to
punch
stand
I
up.
want to
Yeah.
punctuate something there, because we teach through our nonviolence 365 education and training my father's principles, and the first one is nonviolence is a way of life for courageous people. You have to use you have to allow courage to move you into action in this space, if we're going to see true change in our society. So I want to commend you both for your courage and your willingness to risk the loss of stuff. I mean, the folks in the movement that my father led, many of them had to drop out of school and left school because of that movement, and some of them never got a chance to return. Many people's houses were bombed. People who lived in Birmingham, it was known as Bombingham, because there were so
Jeez.
many unsolved bombings of homes and churches. You have people, obviously, that lost their jobs, and people risk the loss of their the loss of their life, such as my father and Viola Luiso, who was a Detroit housewife, white woman who had 5 children, but she felt compelled, in spite of those children, to go down and connect with the folks who were fighting for the right for black people to register to vote uninhibited, and vote. And she lost her life. So thank you all for your courage. And,
I
have you
respectfully,
seen?
So Valerie, no,
Go
respectfully, I
ahead,
just
Val.
don't. I feel like it's not courageous. What you have been doing and what your father did and what everyone else has been doing, that's courageous. For us to use our white privilege to speak up and be of service to anybody that needs help with the injustices that are going on in this country, that's not courageous. Thank you, though. But I feel like it's been selfish to not speak up earlier, and I am not going to not speak any longer because I'm maybe it's selfish just to say I want to be on the right side of history, but we are all human beings, and all human beings should be respected and should be able to live their lives without fear of walking down a street, without fear of driving a car at a certain hour, without fear of anything. So I don't feel like it's courageous. I feel like I have been a wimp up until now, and I'm going to use my voice and I'm going to say what I want to say. And for those of you that don't agree with me, don't follow me, because I don't want you to follow me. I don't want racists following me. I don't believe in you. I believe in you. And I believe in the movement, and I believe that Black
So,
Lives
so,
Matter.
so I want to ask you all a
and,
question, because you mentioned, and Benita, I'm gonna let you say something,
no, go
but
ahead, go ahead.
you mentioned that you didn't see it as courageous. I want to ask you, because there's another level to this. Obviously, using our social media platforms is one outlet and one venue, but what about using the courage with inside Hollywood, with the decision makers, the executives? How does that look right now? What does that need to look like?
So I think this has changed things. I'm going to be very honest. I mean, I've been warned several times by my company, because there is a certain, and I understand, and I'm not suggesting that that was wrong, because I don't know if it's sometimes the way what I'm saying is the way that I'm saying it. And I know, Bernice, you will agree with that, because you've cautioned me about this as well, that words matter. And sometimes I get angry, and sometimes I'll push that button before I take a breath. And right now, nobody's censoring anybody or censoring me, because this things are, as heightened as I could possibly ever have imagined them to be, and necessarily so. So I don't know what the protocol will be now, but I know that I have a responsibility to a network to a degree, as because I'm employed by them. And so I think a lot of corporations and companies, they want us to be a bit neutral. And unfortunately, that's not how I was brought up. That's not how so I have been careful since I've been warned to be less provocative. Um,
We can do this with love,
yeah, yes.
as long as we
So,
listen, and then we learn, and then we act,
Yes.
and that is going to
Yes.
be my role right now. I want to love, I want to listen, I want to learn, and then I know how I can act.
so
So that's what I'm here
yesterday,
for.
it, beautifully said. And yesterday, Kate and I took. So by the way, hello.
Okay.
Hi, how are you? There's Kate.
Good. Okay.
We took a Venetta's class yesterday, and I have fans now online, actually urging them to join in and take the classes that are offered at the King Center that are being done virtually now, because we need to learn. And what I'm seeing right now is a real willingness from everybody to understand and listen and learn how we can help, because
Yep.
that is the main thing, is to just, we want to help, and we have to, it's our responsibility to figure out how to do that. And I'm sharing that, taking like Valerie said, she's going to take it possibly tomorrow. So to get my fans and daytime audience that I seem to have a voice in that arena, to encourage them to take classes at the King Center. What you're offering and what you offer, Dr. King, I know I'm calling you Bernice, and it's because I love you and I know you, but you are Dr. King, and you are an incredible orator, as are the people that work for you. And the King Center is the place that everybody should be looking at right now for guidance and teaching. So there.
Thank you. We
So,
appreciate that.
so as we get ready to close out this segment, if you could challenge or share one thing that you would suggest as people begin to learn to become allies, what would you say would be, what would you recommend, Valerie, and then Nancy? What do you recommend? Because this is, you say it's not courageous, Valerie, but for a lot of people, this is a new thing. And so, what would you recommend to begin the process of learning to be an ally in this work of being anti-racist?
By listening, by shutting up and listening, and but also by there are you could go to the drking.org, and you could sign the petition to get rid of the chokehold. We can. That's an easy thing to do. Just go sign the petition. I did that today. That's super easy, and there's plenty of petitions that we can sign, and then we just need to get more active in our political life, and we need to get more active with voting. And I'm not talking about just president. I'm talking about DAs, prosecutors, judges. We need to stay informed, and those are things that we can easily do. Just, knowledge is power. It really is that simple. So we need to stay informed, and then go vote.
Thank you. Nancy, what
Yeah,
would you
I
encourage your friends? What kind of peer pressure? Dr. King is saying that it's the time now that white people have to hold white people accountable. So, what
absolutely.
kind of peer
Yes.
pressure do you think you need to apply right now?
So what I know is protest is important. There always has to be protest, but that's also a sexy solution. Not a solution, a sexy action, is sometimes I refer to it. It's what Valerie said, is what I'm going to concur, is that local elections are, to me, the most important. Not the rock stars in politics. That's important as well. But
Yes, we do need to get the
becoming-
Senate back, and we do need to get the Senate. Yes.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Oh, for sure. But we have to get involved in things that may not be so as sexy as I can find a better word right now than that sign the petition and get involved with your local politicians and vote. And also, what I would say to my peers, I take no prisoners now. I'll turn around in the grocery store and I say, "Are you registered?" And if they say no, then I will announce their names publicly and say that they should be voting. So,
Yes.
I'm taking no prisoners. I think everybody, this whole notion of being politically correct, now's not the time. Now's the time to act and to
Right.
participate and to talk about things that are uncomfortable, because you know what? We all need to be uncomfortable.
Thank
A
you.
group of us
So,
need to be uncomfortable. So,
thank you. Thank you.
act.
Thank you.
And thank you for doing this. Thank you for doing this online protest. I really appreciate it. We all the voices we can hear and spread throughout this country and through the world. So thank you for doing this online protest.
And also, there's so many artists that we're talking to, working with different things. They want to come to the King Center and help, and they want to
Yes.
support Dr. King and
Yes.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
So
you.
thank
We
you guys
appreciate
both
that.
so much. And
Yes,
Nancy, thank you, because Nancy, you were so wonderful in working with us and galvanizing people. So we really appreciate it. Thank you both.
my
God
pleasure.
bless.
Yes, thank you
And
God bless.
please, yeah, please have everyone, all your followers, to sign this petition. We need to make our voices heard, and we thank
Yes.
you for the work that you're doing in support of that. God bless.
Young artist here too. Young artist, graduated USC. She's working her tush off. So yeah.
All right. Keep
That's
doing
right.
it. Okay.
Yay.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Love you.
Thank you all so much.
God
Bonita is gonna, invite our next guest on, and but as we do that, we want to just remind you to tag 3 friends, to invite them into this stream and let more and more people know about it. At 7 o'clock every night, we are continuing this online protest in tandem with our brothers and sisters, and I say it that way because it's without regard to any racial background or other background, that we are doing this in tandem with our human family who's on the streets of America, crying out loud that justice must be a reality in America, because without justice there will not be any peace. As my father said, because true peace is not merely the absence of tension, it is the presence of justice. So, Bonita, tell us about our guests who we have tonight. I'm excited about this community because this community that they represent have been speaking out of our culture for years in the Black community.
Absolutely.
And sending us messages, sometimes not so good messages.
Right.
But there have been voices out of that community that have truly reflected
Right.
the anguish and the cries of the Black community. And so tell us who we have tonight joining us on this online protest.
So I'm going to do my best without my glasses, Dr. King, trying to be cute on a protest. So we do have the co-founders of hiphop.com. We have Greg Watkins and Chuck Creamer. They'll be joining us. And we have the former president of Rock Nation, Shaka Pilgrim. Thank you all for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having us. And it's we're allhiphop.com, just letting you know.
Oh, okay. Okay. Hiphop.com. Welcome. So before we get started, we like to do a check-in. So just one by one, we're checking in. How are you doing, Shaka? How are you doing?
Chuck.
Chuck.
And Greg.
And Greg. Yeah, so how are you guys doing?
I'm doing really amazingly with the breaking news of the 3 additional officers being arrested, and I just, feel like a valiant effort didn't go unheard, and I'm obviously wanting to lead into a conviction. But right now, I'm feeling a quelling and some anger that was building up inside of me throughout the course of the past week.
Yeah. Thank you,
Yeah,
Shaka.
I'm doing well myself, and just not really, but I'll just say that is a relief. I think everyone should be encouraged to take time to take care of themselves, which I'm doing as much as possible. But I do think this is the time to double down on this fight and continue to push, all the while taking care of ourselves. But right now I'm tired, and I'm like, okay, after this call, I'm gonna take it down.
Yeah.
I feel you.
Well, we thank you for taking this call. And
Yeah.
and yes, go ahead.
Yes, so I'm Grouchy Greg, and I'm doing much better today. Now that these officers are being held accountable, echoing Chaka and Chuck's statements, feels like a weight off of our backs. But being young Black men, this has been very mentally exhausting. Really, the past year. You know, this has been something that's been happening to our community all the time, and through all hip hop, we cover it quite a bit. And
Yeah.
now that it's really hit a fever pitch, it's a weight, like I said, lifted off of our shoulders to see these guys being brought to justice. But it also, as Chuck said, it's been very mentally draining.
Yeah.
So
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 as
Gre-
go ahead, Dr. King. Go ahead.
so Greg, this kind of time period always produces new music that just speaks to where we are and the further lifting of the consciousness of this nation. How do you think the hip hop artists can use their platforms of music now to really amplify this moment and push us into the future?
Right. Well, I think that we've really witnessed the hip hop community do something unprecedented, because this is the first time, really, in history where these artists have cultivated their own followings. Where some of them have 10 million, 20 million, 30, 40, 50 million people, and some artists who are not usually vocal, have been really speaking out and pushing this issue. And rappers have been at the forefront since this particular issue with George Floyd came about. He was a well-respected member of the hip-hop community in Houston. And so you had artists like Bun B and Trey the Truth, who organized the march in Houston yesterday that drew 10,000 people, really standing up and coming up to the front lines. And then there's all kinds of other artists, ranging from Killer Mike, Ti, My Son. These guys are always using their platform to speak. And they've really been doing it in a very powerful manner that I think has really helped put the national spotlight on the whole situation.
What about the music? What about the music part of this?
Well, we have artists now starting to drop some protest music. A few artists dropped some singles today. Yesterday, YG dropped one that has a title that might not be so appropriate for this conversation, but an update of "F the Police." So I think more and more now we're going to see that artists are going to start changing the content of their music to reflect what this reality is. I think. Go ahead, Chuck.
I just want to say just briefly that hip hop has always been on the front lines, and right now we are in a moment right here and right now. But I mean, it just never stopped. It's an unfortunate byproduct of the industry that when capitalism and commerce come into play, some of these artists that are literally on the front lines. I mean, Ferguson alone sprouted a whole movement, a whole onslaught of artists who may not have gotten supported in the way that they deserve to be supported. So, I just want to shout out some of those artists like Rebel Diaz, Tef Poe. I mean, they are, there's so many, and all hip hop has always been supportive of them, but maybe the industry has not been as supportive. So I think that we have to be really clear that this sort of racism, it's not just in police brutality, it's in our entertainment as well. It's in our hip hop as an industry as well. And so the public enemies, as were allowed to flourish in the 80s, may not have those artists that exist right here and right now and have for quite a while, may not have had those opportunities, or a Russell Simmons or a Leor Cohen, or any of those entities to help push them to the front.
So how do we begin to? We were talking to, and I'm not going to call any names. We were talking to some music executives today, and they were talking about the difference in culture, and sometimes there's a whole lot of racism pushing a lot of black people to the back. Shaka, you're a woman, so I know it's been hard for you to navigate. Former president of Rock Nation, how do we begin to apply pressure to shift culture? Her mic is muted.
Mm, unmute.
Unmute me. Sorry. That would be me doing that
let,
for
let,
myself.
let the women speak.
No, I was going to say simply that I think the presence of education in our music and vocabulary, and artists like J. Cole, Wale, I think that's a protest. I don't think it has to be so literal in the sense of you're saying F the police all the time, which we
Right.
need that accompaniment too. But I think it's actually a protest not to put forth the normal stereotypes that we're
Hmm.
accustomed to in this music. We see artists like Meek Mill speaking out and showing up in their day-to-day lives and things outside of music that show that their priorities have shifted, and that we're not just here to entertain you, or you have to accept the entire me. And that means that when we have people like Breonna Taylor and we have people like George Floyd, that we're not going to be ignored, and we're not going to necessarily make a record to appease you, something that can, be more palatable than our speech and our conversation. So I'm really enjoying a lot of the artists showing up in the form of podcasts. I'm enjoying seeing a lot of my artists show up in morning shows, being disruptive in the way that they point to their music and point out their message. I'm excited to see, a former artist, J. Cole, in the crowd amidst, other protesters with no regalia and no fanfare, and saying, I am George Floyd. This could be a knee in my neck, and you're not just going to make me an entertainer. So I think that that is a part of, and was, and becoming continuously a part of the marketing strategy. And I don't say that to be in an opportunistic way, but I'm saying that while I have this platform where ordinarily I would just say, I worked with this producer and I made this track and number nine is my favorite, I'm now saying, hey, and the other day I was at this particular panel speaking about prison reform, and tomorrow I'm going to be doing this. And, God bless the dead, Nipsey Hussle, people that were really invigorating their community and carrying that message throughout their music. And so I'm sorry to be long winded, but it's exciting to give a light to people who want to do more than just promote themselves, and that they
Yeah.
understand that our larger commitment to the community at large. And it's even more exciting to know that there are executives that no longer force you to do something, but understand, with more Black people in position of presidencies and those kinds of seats, that you can't just take the parts of us that appease you. You have to take the entire us. And finally, just looking at like donations of $100 million from Warner today, I saw that announcement for social justice advancement. And I'm sure, in Jay-Z's just tireless efforts speaking to the governor, he's saying, I'm not a rapper. This is me. I'm a Black man. I have Black sons. I have a Black nephew. You're going to have to, be accountable to us in a real way. And the music gave them the power, and they're not just using their power for the advancement of themselves. They're using that power and that influence to make real change. I personally believe that Jay was quite influential in the arrest of all the officers, particularly the officer that was standing by and watching. Complicitness is not going to be accepted by us anymore either. Really long winded. So that's probably the last time I'll speak today, but go to my good friends at All Hip Hop.
So I wanted to know the question about equity in the hip hop industry. How do we get there?
Well, that's a good question. This business is set up like all the, a lot of other major businesses. There's a lot of institutionalized racism. I think everybody on this call has felt it at one point or another. So, that really is a bigger question. I think a lot of it is going to start with how the industry hires, how they circulate money, and how much of that money comes back into Black-owned businesses. I can tell you, Chuck and I will tell you from experience that while it's great that we see all these record labels out here calling and issuing up support for Black men, we have been in business for 25 years almost, and over the past 10 years, it's become more and more difficult for us as a Black-owned business to, get pieces of those budgets. They're going to other entities that don't even, necessarily cover the community with the same passion and love and respect that we cover it with. So, it's going to take a lot of changing individually, in my opinion.
Thank you guys so much. So we are having to wrap up this session, but if you could say one thing in this hour to move this conversation forward, we definitely want you to encourage your followers to sign the petition. But what are your final thoughts that you would just like to share with your followers, the industry, in this moment? What would you like to speak personally?
Well, I guess Shaka, you ladies first. All right. Be vigilant. I mean, this is not something for the faint of heart. Everyone has a role. We have to stay on it. I said in a speech yesterday that I made amongst thousands of people, a very diverse crowd. Everyone plays a role. Everyone can be an ally. There's a lot of different ways for you to do this, and we have to understand that this is really an institution, not just one individual. God bless George Floyd, but there's so many people to that have been disenfranchised, and that's where I will leave it. And I also say hi to Shaka since I haven't seen her in so long.
Shaka, Grouchy
She's m-
Greg.
I think she's muted. She's
she's
speaking.
muted.
Why y'all keep stopping the women from speaking now?
It's not us.
You know you can't make a black woman be quiet. So come on now.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So I just came into this having a conversation this morning at 3 o'clock in the morning. And it's a simple thing that I think everybody can enlist in, and I'll be giving it a bigger platform. It's three plus me and the agenda to get everyone to vote. I think we got a glimpse of what happened in the primaries yesterday, and it's scary and it's glim. And we'll be having these conversations throughout the next couple of months. But that is simply you plus three other people. Make sure that they have all the things necessary to vote. They're sending out these mail-in ballots. People think they're the ballots, and they're probably not going to open them until the day of the election, when you actually have to mail that in order to receive the ballot. So there'll be a number of people that are dismayed because they haven't opened up the package to see that it's literally just an application for the ballot. There are people who don't have the proper identification. There are people who think that because they were at one point a felon, they cannot vote. That is an individual decision by the 50 states. In New York City, you can, as a felon, once you have no longer a ward of the state, you are able to vote again. So those kinds of conversations with people to know that they can be a part of the change, a part of the voting body, and to make people aware of the offices outside of the presidential primary. So understanding what your assemblyman is and who you would want to vote to for that, who your comptroller is, what that person does for you, all the other things that don't normally stand in the forefront. Just have a small conversation with four people. Wake up that morning, if she's 83, if she's just turning 18, and help and go as a community to the polls, and let's make the change that we need to make the change for the long haul.
And Grouchy Greg, before you say that, just to add to that, we want people to know that it's on the ballot for felons. Do you want to, in Georgia, for felons to be allowed to vote? So it's on the ballot. You need to check it and say yes. Okay,
Yes.
Grouchy Greg. Your
Thank
comments,
you.
Grouchy
Well,
Greg?
Thank you.
I want to remind everybody to sign the petition to get the chokehold banned. I would say that I would like to see. Let me say this. Sometimes, it dismays me a little bit to hear white people say that now they are shocked into action when this has been happening for 400 years. So I would really like to see a crash course on the real brutalities that African Americans face, so that these types of incidents are not normalized. I feel like a lot of this has been normalized because for years we've been literally ignoring African American history from a meaningful standpoint throughout the educational system. So, I would like to see that happen. And, then I think dialogue would be even more meaningful.
Absolutely.
Thank you
Thank
guys
you.
so much. Thank you.
Ladies. So
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you,
HipHop.com.
Dr.
you.
King.
Shaka
Thank you all.
Pilgrimage. Thank
Thank you so
you.
much, guys. I really
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you.
God bless you.
Thank you for what you're doing and being consistent. It's important. So thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Shaka.
And
I
thank you,
appreciate
Shaka, for doing this at the last minute. You rock. Love you.
That's Atlanta,
Love you.
seeing you, baby. I can't
That's-
do anything but say yes.
Thank you so much. So, Dr. King, a lot of people has been talk. They have been talking about training. A lot of people have asked about training. Just want you to know, you can just email us at nv365 at thekingcenter.org. NV365 at thekingcenter.org, and just say sign me up, and we will make you aware of our next virtual training. Again, that's NV365 at thekingcenter.org. We have virtual trainings coming up. We're going to be talking about implicit biases and how to interrupt and deal with those things in cultural environments. And we'll be training on mobilizing and organizing. So if you want change to take place, you have to know the strategies of getting organized to actually get the outcomes that you seek. So we're going to be talking about that in our nonviolence training as well.
All right, so thank you very much again. We have another young man who's a singer and a songwriter, Gene Noble. He's written for some of the top artists like Chris Brown and Jason Derulo and Faith Evans. He's independently released his own song, Only Love, featuring Pitbull and Shaggy, and it reached the top 40 status. So welcome tonight, Gene. We appreciate you signing on and checking in with us. How are you? We're gonna do a check on you tonight, because this is traumatic for our community. It's super traumatic. Over and over again, we're living these traumatized lives.
Yeah, it's been a crazy week, but I will say what I appreciate is that my friends and my brothers have all reached out, and we've all had some serious, deep conversations that we've never even had before. And honestly, a lot of allies, a lot of my friends have reached out and just offered their help in whichever way that they could be of service. So even though it's kind of been a heavy week, what's been great and hopeful about it is that it started a lot of conversations and a lot of great movement forward as far as just even in relationships in my life.
So, Gene, what do you feel? Do you feel that most artists are, number one, threatened that it could be an extreme economic factor to really have positive, conscious music and lyrics that address systemic racism and the evils that we're dealing with, whether it's poverty, racism? You took a bold stand, and I saw your powerful video just educating people on the pandemic. So, what are some of the fears that artists may have, and then what do you say to artists who may have those types of fears, but yet they want to speak on these issues?
Mm. Well, one time, maybe a couple years before he passed, Ozzie Davis, I took a flight from New York to LA, and I sat next to Ozzie Davis, and I'm paraphrasing, but the short part of the conversation was basically that we have so many more voices that are really famous and really rich now, but the reason that they are getting through is because there's less of a fear that they're going to use their voice for change. And he said that they for sure knew that they were going to say something about whatever was going on. And so I remember that, and I remember saying, like, I'm always going to say something. But honestly, it's for me, I feel like it's not really an option, because I am George Floyd, you know what I'm saying? I am Trayvon Martin, I am Tamir Rice, I am all those things. It's really not an option for me. But I do understand that people have some issues. I mean, even with our video that we did, there was Google and YouTube and different things trying to block the video from getting views, or because they said it was kind of a political message, even though everything in it was facts. It was all real things that were going on. So sometimes it can be those types of factors that make people want to quiet down. But I think now people are making the demand of their artists to pick a side. Like, we don't really have any time at this point for people to not say anything, for people to not speak up. So I think that the fans, the consumers are really making, making a demand of artists and the companies that represent those artists to stand up and say something right now. So that I'm very, very glad about.
So I want to ask you this question: If you could create a theme song in this hour, in this moment, what would it convey to us?
Well, I don't know if you heard the song, but it's called "Too Many Lost," and the lyrics are, You want war and I want peace, but I'll fight here in these streets if it means one less mother's gonna cry tonight. You know, I got hope, but you got guns, and they're pointed at my sons. So I gotta switch up real quick or I won't survive. You know, and then the chorus is just saying, how much more can we take till we rise up and say too many lost. So I mean, I feel like unfortunately this song was written during another killing, you know, and now the song is relevant again. Shoot, we released the song a month ago, and in a month, what is it, 4 high profile killings?
Yeah.
So it's kind of heavy, but that's what I would wanted to say, is that it's time for everybody to stand up and say something, and that there's been too many people lost, and that we're not going to allow other people outside to try to divide us, you know, because that's the thing, is people want to divide, and this is a moment where everybody is standing together, and it's beautiful to see.
Thank you.
It's very
Gene,
beautiful.
thank you so much, Gene Noble. And this is what we need to say to our community. We have to support artists like Gene, the artists who are speaking those things that move culture forward. We need to support artists who are speaking our truth and speaking for justice and speaking for love and speaking for humanity. It's our responsibility, Gene, to support artists like you. So we just thank you. Thank you for sharing tonight, and thank you for being generous with your time.
Thank you
God
so
bless
much.
you.
Thank you for this
Thank you.
platform.
And encourage people to sign the petition too, Gene.
Absolutely. A
Yes,
can't wait.
absolutely.
Let's go.
Eight can't wait, yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank y'all
Absolutely.
so much.
Thank you,
Thank
Gene.
you.
God bless. Woo, Dr. King, that was powerful. I love to see our young brothers using their art, and you and sisters like Valerie and Nancy, and then the executives Grouchy Greg and Shaka, all of them using their artists and advancing culture, and not afraid to speak out. This is really beautiful.
Yeah, and we know it comes with a price. I mean, we
Yeah.
remember when Michael Jackson saying they don't care about us,
Woo.
and so
Yeah.
so much shifted in his life when he did that. But you know, these truths have to be told, and music is a powerful way to do that. And as we continue to produce music, you know, my heart's cry is that we can begin to hear more music that not only reflects the pain in our community and the things that we are being kind of forced to react to because of what's coming against us, to being able to think about how do we push a message of nonviolence. How do we do that in a climate like this? Because that's what's been so hard. Let's just be
Yeah.
frank. You know, people are looking at violence or nonviolence right now. And a lot of people are dismissive of nonviolence because they feel that it does not work. They feel that it has gotten us nowhere. And I want to say something about that because nonviolence is a discipline that has to be learned. It has to be ingested. Your mindset becomes consumed with a whole nother way of thinking and operating and acting and engaging. And your posture is more important. I think we've taught nonviolence as it starts outside, meaning it's not working because those people aren't changing. But nonviolence begins with you. It does something inside of you. And the reason I say that is because I really believe that the only reason the people who were gathered together at my father's home the night that it was bombed in 1956 with their guns and their stones and their rocks and their bricks and perhaps knives and ready to take action against those bombers, the reason why they could decide we're going to embrace this other approach is because my father had been consuming himself in nonviolence. And it's a power, it's a strength, it's a courage, it's a determination, and it has the ability to expose the ugly. You know, this is simplistic, but sometimes when people are fighting us physically, and you have to protect yourself, I get all of that. But sometimes when the fight starts and then you start fighting, it's hard for people to see the ugly and the one who's really the aggressor and the monster. If you, I don't like calling anybody a monster, but you get what I'm saying. And so let's talk about it. So Dr. Vanetta West is
Yeah, so
coming
I was gonna
in
say
and
we have Vanetta to come in and talk about our
um,
MV three sixty
she,
five nugget. So
yeah,
and before she starts talking, Dr. King, we want to make sure that for those who have logged on, if you would just let us know where you're from, if you would put your city, your state, and just let us know that you're here because we are so grateful to have you here present with us and connecting with this community. Yeah,
or your nation,
or
because
your
this is a
nation. Yeah.
global revolution. My father said in the 50s and probably about the 60s that there was a revolution. These are revolutionary times. We're once again in revolutionary times. And before Vanetta speaks, I want to tell something. My father said there's a difference between a revolt and a revolution. A revolt, he said, is what a revolt moves people. It may move people to react. The people who are looting, the people who are throwing bricks and they're throwing Molotov cocktails or whatever they're throwing. That's the reaction. That's the revolt, the destructiveness. But then there's the revolution. A revolution changes people and systems. That's what nonviolence does when you add it to the equation. It changes people and systems. So I wanted to lay that out right now as we are coming close to the end of our online protest and invite Vanetta, who's one of our instructors in Nonviolence 365 at the King Center, to just share a little bit with us now. Welcome, Vanetta. I know
Thank
we
you.
all weary tonight. Checking in, checking in. I'm about to fall on my face. I'm gonna be honest with everybody,
Yeah,
because this is some exhausting
you've been
work,
going hard.
and yet it's energizing too at the same time.
Yeah.
So Vanetta, you've heard the conversation tonight, and you teach, with all of us at the King Center. What nugget do we need to leave people with today? We do a MV365, Nonviolence 365 nugget moment at the end because that's what this is about. Nonviolent protest online. So, what nugget can we leave for our community today?
Well, two main things that I would leave tonight. One is to highlight something Dr. King just said about the strategy of nonviolence. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said that nonviolence makes it clear who's the oppressed and who's the oppressor. So nonviolence is very strategic in that within a protest, within any form of direct action, anything that nonviolence does, nonviolence makes it apparent. That's a part of the strategy so that the attention isn't taken off of the goal or the injustice to focus on violence within a protest. That's one. I think that's very important because sometimes when we talk about nonviolence, we don't talk about the strategy. And
Yeah.
so that's part of the reason why when they were at the counters for the sit-ins, they were trained in how not to respond when people would spit on them and call them the N-word because they were trying to reach a goal of getting legislation passed that would change the conditions in the South and in the United States. That's critical to understand that nonviolence is strategic. And one of the things I say about it is it's strategic, love centered non cooperation with evil. That's important. It's love centered, and love is not this passive thing where it doesn't take action and is not concerned about justice. The second thing is, I think it's important to lead people tonight, and this lesson helped me yesterday. Principle 6 of nonviolence: the universe is on the side of justice. I think somebody else may need to hear that right now. I needed it yesterday. I was weeping and crying, and I had to get a spiritual check that the universe is on the side of justice, and we need to hear that clearly. It doesn't say people are on the side of justice. It says the universe is on the side of justice. And justice, Dr. King said, at its best, is power or love correcting everything that stands against love. And the universe is on the side of that. And what we have to do is get on the same side that the universe is on. That's ultimately the side that we should be taking. At some point, it's not even about political sides, political parties. It's, am I on the side of justice? And if
Amen.
I'm on the side of justice, everything else lines up.
Amen. So, Dr. King, we
And
got 20 seconds. If you could
20
just.
seconds. I just want to say violence changes the conversation and we lose the narrative.
Yes.
Nonviolence keeps us on the narrative. Please remember that we have to be engaged as citizens of the United States, and part of that is voting. It's staying engaged even in between voting. So it's not just voting, it's staying engaged. Sign the petition. We know the officers have been already arrested, charged, and arrested, and we're on our way. So sign the petition about banning the chokehold. And tomorrow, join us at 7 o'clock again on our online protest, and keep your voices resounding in this climate. Wherever you are, what environment you're in, just continue to speak about justice and true justice, which is not merely the absence of tension, but the true peace, which is not merely the absence of tension, but the presence of justice. Good night to you all, and thank
Good
you for
night,
joining
everybody.
us from all over the world.
Good
Good
night.
night.
God bless.